Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hi, Chad.
I said, how are you doing?
Oh, I thought it was a rhetorical question.
My fault.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited to be running our second episode of the Morning Huddle Construction Show Well Built series.
Boom.
Yeah, this is cool.
It's super cool.
Last time we did this, and for the record, we film in the evenings, so we're loopy. And the last time we did this, it was dark outside.
It was super dark outside, and now it is very light outside and hot.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, with nature, man.
Turns out time passes. So you got to all experience that with us. Is just each episode we're going to be talking about how time passes and the seasons change.
I'm gonna do it like relentlessly.
Sunset today is at.
So for those of you who are catching the episode for the show for the first time, let me give you a little bit of a lay of the land, and you know what, probably doesn't hurt for those of you who are coming back for episode number 2 to get a lay of the land. So we really have 4 different things that we cover from a structural standpoint, all with the purpose of just having a fun, enlightening conversation about the stuff that Matt and I care about related to the construction industry, and hopefully you guys will too. The first thing we do is just kind of check in, which we're really good at.
Yeah,
we're the best at checking in. and then we have an educational topic, and today's educational topic you won't want to miss. After the educational topic, we then transfer into a kind of XVY is the name of the segment in the show, where we take kind of differing opinions or differing positions on hot topics in the construction industry that should be interesting for you to think about and choose who wins. And then lastly, we finish with some suggestions for books that we're reading, just stuff that we share what we are currently reading and whether we think you ought to read it, and kind of make some suggestions from there. So, Matt, is anything to add to that really thorough, structured agenda?
Yes. So far, there are only 2 rules of the podcast.
There are 2 rules.
There are 2 rules. One is that the show will be around an hour,
which is hard and fast.
An hour-ish.
Yes.
And the second rule is that we're allowed to swear. So
we are allowed to swear during this show. It's not like we're going to a lot.
No.
But we're allowed.
It won't be gratuitous. It's just we're adults. We're all adults here.
Yeah. And I don't want to swear more than I need to swear.
Got it. Only when it feels right.
But I do need to swear a fair amount. So just a heads up. All right, cool. So how are you doing, man? Like, what are you working on that's cool? What's happening in your world?
Man, really good. So much exciting stuff. So much different stuff. I always say when people ask me about our job that to me it falls into 3 categories: consulting, coaching, and training.
Uh-huh.
And between the 3, just get so many opportunities to do all 3. So been traveling more. That's been exciting with some new clients around the country, in California and Texas and Florida, Alabama, Tennessee.
You have been around, man.
So it's been fun, and so I'm having a lot of fun getting used to all that. And overall, I am doing very well. So thank you for asking.
My pleasure. I'm glad to hear it.
How are you?
I need more mats. We kind of talked about this a little bit this morning, but like I'm doing really well, but I also am, as the founder of the business and the person who's ultimately in charge of the company, I feel really responsible for everyone's well-being, and I can see how busy we are getting, and I am always one to try to hire before the crunch, and I think we are in a position to hire before the crunch, but I can very much see the crunch. And, so that's front and center on my mind, is making sure that, you can go on vacations and have a reasonable work-life balance, and not just you, selfish, me too. Cause I do the work alongside Matt, right? We do the same job. So anyway, that is definitely front and center on my mind is the people side of the equation. I'm also very extraordinarily grateful that I can make a list of at least 4, if not 5 or 6 people that we're like talking to who are awesome, who have come to us and said, what you're doing is really, really interesting to me. And I'd love to talk about potentially doing that. And they're falling into like two buckets.
Mm.
One is the group of people who have been just incredibly successful in their career in the construction industry, and they've reached maybe the last third of their career. They're somewhere, they've been working for 25 to 30 years, and they're thinking about what they want to do in the last third of their career, and they want to come and join a team where they can give back to the construction industry and not have to necessarily be in it, which has some benefits to them from a work life trade off, and also just kind of as I told Matt whenever he started working here, I was like, there aren't any consulting emergencies, not like there are on a job site, and so it is a different look. There's a ton of responsibility, as you know, and there's a lot of different kind of stress, but there isn't so much like the phone call in the middle of the night and like, hey, the trusses didn't show up.
Yeah, the roof's leaking.
Correct, kind of stress,
Yeah.
right? And so we don't have that type of thing so much. So that's the first group is those really seasoned professionals who wanna give what they know to the construction industry. And then the other group is your group, Matt, which is the group of people who are in the construction industry today, are
Yep.
extremely passionate about the construction industry, and see what they're most interested in doing is actually building a career in the consulting industry, specifically working for construction companies. And so we have about an equal split of people in that camp right now, which is just, again, I feel very, very fortunate. But as you know, I'm also really, well, we are. It's not just me. We are very discerning. So it's like we're too small to just add people and see how it goes.
Well, all of that is so interesting. And the thought going through my mind, and we have a lot of executives, people that are running departments and divisions. We also have a lot of owners that listen to this show, running the whole business. And immediately, when you have a thought like that, Chad, as the founder and owner, that, oh my gosh, we're going to start hitting this crunch, I want to make sure we're prepared. I could imagine that that's anxiety inducing or scary or all these other things. And I'm wondering, what do you do when you have one of those thoughts that's this big picture, got to take care of it type of thought?
The first thing I tend to do is start writing. I just start charting out the problem. I definitely don't let it bang around up here. That's a very dangerous place for worries to live for me.
Mm-hmm.
I get worries very quickly out of my head, not by being like, right, but instead by getting them out onto fake paper. Our
This
our
this podcast is not sponsored by Remarkable, but maybe one day.
maybe one day. Yeah, it certainly could be. We're big fans. But so I get it. I get the thoughts out, and I really chart and articulate the problem. Some people might call that journaling. I don't honestly think about it like it's journaling. I think about it more like it's processing issues, and so that's the first thing that I do. And I'm always seeking to say, what is a positive step? What's something I can do today that would be a positive step toward resolving this issue as I see it? I don't try to conquer the mountain at one time because I know I can't. And I don't have time to conquer that mountain today because I've
Mm-hmm.
got a full calendar today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So today all I can do is take one positive step, and if I can define what that positive step is and do that positive step, that usually puts the voices at ease. And so one of the things that I started to do, as you know, and I know a lot of our audience knows too, we have an awesome extended team of consultants who work with us in a subcontracted capacity, who have the ability to step in here or there where we don't have expertise, or have the ability to be overflow when we absolutely need overflow. And we wouldn't have had that if I never started that process, right? If I never
Totally.
so we have awesome people that I trust, who we are partners with and aligned philosophically, who do great work, that I can get stuff over to, because the first time I ever charted out this problem, I asked myself that question. All of a sudden, I pick up the phone and I started calling awesome people in our network, like Mark Drury, and said, hey, But I may have overflow issues from time to time. And I know that you're, quasi retired, but would this be something you're into? And had a bunch of those conversations. And now, I'm just extraordinarily fortunate to have a large group of awesome people who love to throw in their lot with us. And we pull them in even when we don't quote unquote have to, but it's really nice to have that backup when we have to. But what I know we need now is, more full-time staff. So
Yeah, that's
anyway,
great.
but that's, you asked it.
Action.
Yeah.
Take
Action.
action.
Well, it's take action. First action, writing it down. Second action, defining what would equal progress in my brain today.
Mm-hmm.
And then do the thing to quiet the voice and, stay calm.
Yeah, totally. That's great.
Yeah. Panicking, I found, doesn't help me.
No, yeah, it doesn't help anybody.
I don't think it does, but I don't want to reserve, maybe there is for like, I'm best when I'm a complete wreck.
Yeah, right. There's lots that you can worry about if you want to worry about it. So
Yeah, it's true. Let's dig into our topic. Today we've got winning without being low.
something that we've both talked a lot about, something that I think we're both very passionate about, the idea of having relationships that allow you to win projects without being low.
Yeah, in a construction industry that is today, for the most part, and it depends on the geography that you're in and the type of construction that you're doing, stood the degree of accuracy of this statement, but most projects are procured with at least some low bid or modified low bid procurement method. And in that, when you're operating inside that norm, it's almost like pre-programmed in everybody's brain, right? Like you weren't low. Oh, that means I lost. And we work really hard, Matt and I, to help our clients to start hearing you weren't low as not the end of the road, but a start of a conversation.
Totally.
And so, Matt, you have experience that I don't, in that you have actually been, I've put on the jersey, but I got to take it off at the end of the day. You've actually been in the trenches working for a couple of different construction companies in your time. And I wonder, what your personal experience was with, the percentage of projects that went low bid, how you have historically oriented yourself to the thought of low bid.
Yeah, it's a great question. The first thought that pops to my mind is 100% of the projects go low bid when you believe that all of the jobs that you bid go low bid. And until you are enlightened to the fact that you don't have to participate in a low bid environment in most markets, I want to keep putting that,
Yeah.
because there's always the people that are working in schools or some other municipality that have a low bid requirement. Totally get it. Understood. Isn't exactly applicable.
Yeah.
Some of these concepts of building relationships we're going to talk about are still applicable, but we understand. But at the end of the day, if you treat your number like the only thing that matters is price, then that is exactly how the clients are going to treat you. And in my experience, where I saw the next benefit being was, okay, well, what if we liked each other? What if me and the client were friends? What if there was an opportunity for us to go get lunch together? Would there be some chance that they would want us on their projects
Right.
too?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I started to recognize that there was this second thing beyond price that people cared about, and it was relationship. And then as I started being in the relationships, that's when I started noticing some of the other things contextually that were going on along with having that relationship, providing really fantastic budgets during design development, providing constructability review, putting together information for your clients to be able to send to the architect or client to use on their behalf. That there's all of these things that go into the concept of value that are beyond your price. And in order for you to be purchased on value, you need to actually create a value that goes beyond the price that you are
That's right.
submitting on your proposal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I mean, it's you absolutely can, in the large majority of scenarios, you can win without being low. It's just true.
It is.
You'll never win without being low if you're not actually better and if they don't want you on their project, right?
Totally.
And so the they in that example, in my experience, is equally applicable between general contractor, construction management firms, and trade contractors, subs. It's equally applicable. It's the same game, different characters, definitely a different series of decision making norms that you have to understand and learn how to navigate. But in either case, the large majority of projects you can win without being low. So you talked about relationships and you talked about value, right? And I think that is what I work really hard to challenge anyone who says all this low bid stuff is hocus pocus. I say you have to have, or I'm sorry, all this winning without being low, that is hocus
Totally.
pocus. You have to have both those things.
Totally.
Don't
Totally.
don't pretend like it can't happen. If it's not happening for you, you don't have one or both of those things.
In general, people people follow the examples that are set for them. This
Yep.
goes for anything you talk about in business, in life, anything. And so I said it already, but I'll say it again. If you go into your interactions acting like price is the only thing that matters, and you're asking questions about price, and you're getting frustrated about price, and everything you're doing is all revolving around price, then the people around you will take your cue and they will look at you like a price. It's just true.
Yep.
And I think that is one of the hardest things to overcome as we are, training on these topics, coaching on these topics, is just the mindset that there is more out there than being the low bidder. And until you see it for yourself, I can understand why it is thought of as not being possible. But once you do see it and you see that it's actually a lot more fun, and that you get to work with people that you like and all the benefits that go along with it, it becomes a very easy habit to maintain, because it is a much more useful way to win work.
Yeah, there's a general contractor. There's a general contractor called Clark Construction. Some people know him.
Maybe you've heard.
Maybe you've heard. One of their long time employees. I did an interview with him one day. His name's Larry Stovacek. He used to head up purchasing for them, and I think nationally was the head of national purchasing at one point. But he tells this great story. I don't know if he thinks it's great, but he told me this story that I thought was great, where he said he was one night went to a company dinner, and he was fortunate enough to be sitting next to Jim Clark. He was the late Jim Clark, the founder of the company, and he said, they were celebrating a great year, type of thing, and Larry had turned to him and said, Jim, we did it. This was great, and Jim said something to the effect of like, look, man, we didn't really do this. We did it with a lot of people, with a lot of help. And the reason that we were able to do this is because those people are our friends. And he said, I just want you to remember that as long as you're build with your friends, and it'll get a lot easier. It'll be a lot easier.
Amazing story.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the concept that you've really the term you've coined in the construction sales world of this account-based project selling? Could you talk a little bit about what that means? And
I don't know if I've coined it, by the way.
enough.
I just don't know anybody else who's coined it. So perhaps I have, but I should. A good Google would do that well. Feel free to send it a comment and be like, you stole that.
You coined it to me.
I coined it to Matt. But so there's this term that I like to use when I think about selling in the construction industry, because it is not. I'm not going to say unique, because I can think of some other industries that share the same norms, but not a lot. It is something that is so very specific to the construction industry, and only a very small handful of other places. And that is that it is an account-based sale, but it is also a project-based sale. And that combination, where you are selling projects to the same accounts over and over again, is the essence of what it is to sell in the construction industry.
What do you mean by account?
So an account is a decision maker. An account is someone who has the ability to award you work. So if you're a GC, your account might be the director of East Coast development for Amazon, right? Note, I didn't say Amazon was your account, because Amazon, inside Amazon, you could have, I don't even want to venture a guess. I'm going to say hundreds, if not thousands, of accounts. If you're a construction company, you could be doing business with Amazon in any number. I mean, I don't know, but I would bet that they're one of the largest landowners in the United States today. So, Amazon's not your account. You don't have the Amazon account. You have the Steve blah 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 account, the who happens to be the regional vice president, blah blah blah. You get what I'm saying?
Totally. Yeah. And I'll just add the flavor that on the subcontractor level, this means that the large general contractors that you're working with, that there are opportunities inside of those companies for multiple accounts.
Yeah, Clark Construction is a good example. Clark Construction is not an account. Clark Construction is only an account if you're dealing at the absolute highest senior executive level, and they make the award to you on all of their jobs nationwide, which, guess what, Clark does not do. Right? They don't do that. They do have centralized purchasing. Let's not make this a Clark show, but they do have some, but they're, bottom line is, if you're a sub, the only GCs that you could really count as accounts are GCs where there's really one decision maker. And these are, smaller, small to mid-sized general contractors where everything does actually flow through a single, key point.
And so if that's what we're talking about here, and today we're talking about winning without being low.
Yep.
Right. So then obviously you have to get into these accounts.
Yep.
In order to do that.
That's the first sale.
What do you mean by that?
So you got to sell the account. When you sell the account, you don't get any money, but you got to sell the account. The first thing that you have to do is gain the commitment that they want to work with you, and have compelling reasons for them to choose you. So that's your first sale, and no money changes hands. And then there's an opportunity for you to actually pursue their work. And that's the project sale. So I got the account sale, which was just a handshake and a gosh darn it, let's work together, that may or may not be worth a hill of beans. Let's be clear on that. Some people are really happy to say nice things to you and then give you nothing. Has that ever happened?
If I had $1.
Right? Yeah. So it happens.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
It happens to subs and it happens to GCs. This is a shared experience, very much a shared experience, particularly with very active customers. If you're a general contractor and you're dealing with, and I'm not selecting them by any stretch to throw them under the bus. I'm just, for similar reasons to Clark, they're just a huge company. We'll stick with Amazon, right? If you're, dealing with that regional vice president at Amazon, that person, may or may not have, full decision-making authority. They may or may not be dealing with a budget that's really theirs. And so they're not, in my experience, they're not liars, but they are often quite happy to tell that general contractor, absolutely, we love the idea of working together. You seem highly qualified. We'd love to get you involved. When a part of the reality is they do need multiple prices.
They need participation.
So there's a likelihood when you're selling the account that people will be more kind to you than they, in fact, will be later when you're actually pursuing a project. So what that means when you're selling accounts is you have to be skeptical, not cynical, not a negative, but skeptical when they say like, "Oh my gosh, we love this. This sounds great." You got to train yourself to be like, "That sounds really nice. Thank
Why?
you." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. But like, why? And what does that mean exactly? And what does this mean for our relationship? And what should I expect next? And things like that, right?
You have to, yes, and you have to eliminate the words "I think" from your vocabulary when you're leaving these types of meetings. I think that's one of the greatest pieces of advice I can give is when you're coming back and you're saying, "I think we're going to get that next
Yeah,
job. I
yeah,
think we're in good shape." I mean, I believe they need us.
yeah.
I believe that they have a need for us. As soon as you're saying things like that, you haven't been skeptical enough to really drive to the root of what's going on and what the clear next steps really are. Which takes me away from where I really wanted to get
Sorry,
to
yeah,
too. No. It's okay. This is great. I can't help myself. We can't help ourselves as we're
yeah.
going
That's a
down these
fact.
paths. But when you talk about getting into that account and talk about winning and selling that account first, what are the kinds of things that you're saying? What are the kinds of things that you're selling at the account level in order to win the account?
So it's you've got to first establish what they're doing today without you in the picture, because this account, again, it's so listen, account-based sales, there are tons and tons of account-based sales out there, like insurance, accounting. These are account-based sales. You secure the insurance account, you secure the tax and audit account, right? Like you capture that account. In those sales, in every account sale, they already have a service provider. So there's always the ability to draw a contrast between what they're currently getting and what they may be able to get from you. And this, by the way, presupposes that I'm not already doing some business with this account, which we can get to in a minute, which is like, you know, do you sell the account once? Because the answer to that's no.
Right.
You sell the account 100 effing times, right? Over and over and over again. And that's what's make this sales. That's what makes this sale special. Um, but the so the idea is that you are comparing what they're currently doing and making sure that you have a really firm grasp on where they're happy, where they're not happy, what the opportunities are for improvement, and then beyond that, you want to make sure you have a full understanding of the lay of the land. How do they normally like to make decisions? Who all gets involved in those decision making processes? How do they select subcontractors like you or general contractors like you? Right? Like how does all that type of stuff work? And you ask them for real examples, right? I like really, like, so on your last project, how'd you select that GC? And what went into that and who all was involved. And because again, there's a historical precedent for this stuff. They've been doing it over and over again. So it's not a hard conversation to get into if you're not afraid to ask. And so the conversation, it's all about mutual qualifying. It's like, I'm qualifying you, making sure that, we think we'd be a good fit to work with you. You're qualifying me, making sure that you feel confident that we could do the work. And um and so I have to be prepared to do some presentation, but it's usually kind of muted. Like do not think of this as a lunch and learn. This is
Yeah.
right. This is not a lunch and learn.
No,
Oh,
the lunch and learn is a unilateral experience where people are sitting there listening to you talk about your business.
that's right.
And at the end of it, they're going to say, yes, we do value partnership. We do want subs that also value partnership. Right. And you're going to leave and think, oh, that means that we are in good shape. Like we both value partnership. We had a great
Got
lunch.
one.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think we got that
Yeah. Yeah.
one.
Sweet. Yeah.
No, but to your point, you're mutually qualifying. You're asking great questions. You're taking notes. You're trying to understand
Totally.
what they're going through to understand what you could be doing.
And once I understand what their opportunities are and what they care about, and the things that, like, here, there are some things that they're currently getting that they need to make sure they can get from you. There are some things they're not currently getting that maybe you could bring value and show, some difference to. And ultimately, we want to be able to present those capabilities, make sure that they have confidence in what we've shown them. And then we pause and we ask, Does it make sense for us to pursue work together? Again, sorry, I got to go back to, we also make sure we're setting some ground rules and make sure I'm comfortable with how they procure and make sure that I don't think that's going to be an epic waste of my time. Definitely had clients where when we get to doing this really effectively and we're asking great questions, that will uncover situations where the customer says, we like to put jobs out to 5+ bidders, and
No matter what.
that's right. And we scope them all up because they're all apples to apples. I
Yeah.
love apples
If
to
you're
apples.
bidding to us, that means you're a qualified bidder. That means the low bid is the low qualified bidder.
Apples suck. Apples.
I'm allergic to apples, so I'm good with that.
You're anti-apple. I'm actually. Let's be clear. I'm pro-apple, but I'm anti-apples to apples.
I'm not anti-apple. Look, it's debate for another day.
Apples or no apples. Yeah. I will tell you, no apples to apples. Right? Because there's no such thing as apples to apples, man. There's not. I'm sorry. The people are different. Their individual capacities and experience are different. This super with this company and this super with this company are two totally different dudes, right? Or women. You know what I mean? They're two totally different people, and they can bring complete havoc to the job or mastery to the job. And apples to apples is such a misnomer. It's such trash. And I can't stand when people sit there and try to defend we scope everybody out, we get them all apples to apples, and then we award it to the low number. Sorry,
but now
my bad. And that might be okay with you if you're pursuing, right? So I'm not saying that it should make everybody as mad as it makes me. And I also know that there's a reality that we have to live in where you're going to hear that a lot of times if people are actually being honest, and that you're just starting the relationship. And so, you know what, Matt? That's not an unfair ask that the first time around, I'm not going to get special treatment. They've been awarding the work to my competitor this whole time. So how would I come in and say like, hey, I'm awesomer, change the game for me? You're going to have to prove it. Great news. It's an account. You get lots of opportunities to prove it.
Totally.
Is that, you know what I mean?
Totally.
So,
yeah. Totally.
Sorry, you were going to ask another question, I think.
Well, just along all those lines, now you're a contractor and you're in the room, and that's the type of answers that you're getting, is that's how they view their work. What do you do?
So you have a decision to make, and I think a lot of it has to do with how good of a fit they are everywhere else. Because if they're checking this box and this box and this box and this box and their procurement method isn't ideal, I might go ahead and run that down. But if they're missing this box and this box and this box, and their procurement method is still not ideal, I might say, you know what, I think we're a pass.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what I just have to have the courage to say, hey, it sounds like you're pretty well set with what you're currently doing. I don't think we add substantial value. And frankly, it sounds to me like the majority of the time we wouldn't be your contractor. So we have extremely limited pre-construction resources, estimating resources. We need to spend those with people that we know we're going to be successful. So unless you see a reason for us to continue, I'm going to suggest we don't.
Totally. And by the way, if in any of those situations you still decide that you do want to pursue them, the key is at least you now know the game that you are playing.
That's right. And okay, so now let's talk about playing each individual game.
Let's talk about getting the project sale.
Yeah, let's talk about getting the project sale.
Cool.
And then we're going to come back to the account sale, because that's the way this industry is, right? It always comes back to the account, which we'll cover. So when you're actually in pursuit of the project, Matt, what are some of like the do's and don'ts that you have found most effective navigating individual project pursuits, both in your personal experience and in advising clients over the past year?
So do always ask great questions. Don't bid the job simply because you received the invitation to bid.
Right.
Just that is a tender that has been sent out. It does not necessarily mean that you have to accept it. So if you are receiving it, go ask a bunch of questions. Others on the list are: do review the job for geographic fit, for market fit, for scope fit, and for schedule fit.
Yeah, take time, get the facts out on paper, evaluate that job.
Yes. And then don't just jump blindly into the documents without really going and understanding who is behind the documents, who the people involved in the project are going to be, why you were given the opportunity to bid on this project to begin with.
Yeah. So you bring up another really, really, really interesting point. Different. This will be a different show. I am certain of it. I'll add it to the list. But there is, just by looking at the documents, so many people don't really go through. I can't tell you how many GCs I'll ask, like, oh, who designed that? And they're like, oh, I don't know. I got to go look at the plans. Wrong answer. Wrong answer. If you don't know who designed it, you're failing to connect some dots on other jobs that you've probably built with these people. You can pick up the phone and be like, hey man, tell me about this owner. Right? Like, give me more. Give me some information. Like, help me win. That type of stuff. So anyway, look at the plans, pull that information, because they're not direct accounts, but the design community is extraordinarily valuable to the contracting community if they're partnered with correctly.
Totally.
Anyway, love the advice of take a look at the plans. Anything else that you'd add?
At that point, really what you're trying to make sure of is that if you are going to devote the resources to it, is that it is a good use of your people's time. And we always say that running your estimating team is like an engine,
Mm-hmm.
and you can either run your engine with oil or without oil. And you can run a darn good engine without oil and just keep burning heat and winning 5%, 10% of the jobs that you're pursuing, but it burns everybody out. It's exhausting, it's demoralizing. So you got to really look at the projects and decide if you really think you have an actual shot at doing it.
So I'll add a couple. I love that, and I'll add a couple of items to this do and don't list. Do not, under any circumstances, I'm looking at you, send a proposal without an agreement for a meeting to review it. I don't care if you're a sub or a general, and I know so many people who are listening to this right now are like, they'll never give me that meeting. Yes, they will, as long as you make it conditional upon the submission of your price. They need participation. Use the fact that they need participation to your great advantage by securing a meeting to review your proposal. If they can't give you, and I've said these words, Matt, if you can't give me 30 minutes to review something that took our team 25, 30, 40 hours to put together, I'm not sure that's a good partnership for us. Let them argue that. Seriously, let them have a fight with you over that. Good luck.
No, you're so right.
It's an impossible argument, and you can't be afraid to go there. People will respect you. They may not love that conversation, may be a little uncomfortable, but you'll get the freaking meeting, and that's all you need to keep their attention and keep yourself at the center. The corollary to this, to make sure you don't ever give away your proposal without getting a meeting in return, is to do the math on what it is costing you to produce a bid. When people actually sit down and do the math on their hard costs for pursuing a project, we do this with many of our clients who have really low hit rates, who we help them to realize that they are running a machine without oil, a machine that is destined to burn out, and furthermore is a huge overhead drag on their business because they're not doing it right. We'll help them to actually do some time tracking. Another episode.
Add it to the list.
Add it to the list. But we'll help them do some time tracking, and they realize that on average it's taking them, and I'm making it up, right? Depending, if you're a general contractor, I mean, I've done the math with different general contractors, 120 hours, man hours to do a bid. What's your hit rate? 10%? Oh my God. Don't get me started with that math.
That's a lot of lost dollars.
That's a massive and then here comes the justification. Well, we didn't get low here. The prices got stupid over there. We have a competitor buying the job. We have, whatever it is, all these different things that sort of come in. You don't have a better relationship, and they don't see the value. Spend your resources there. You know what? Stop bidding anything for 3 months and get your shit straight before you waste any more money. Okay, keep bidding stuff because you got to keep the machine. I get it. You need money, but seriously, it is an incredible waste for most contractors because they're not putting the emphasis in the right place. They're putting all the emphasis. They think that the win is getting the bid out.
Yes.
They're like, yeah, we
Yeah.
got the bid out.
Exactly.
That's not the win, but that's what you've been programmed to think is the win. And it's and again, it's because buyers have done a really, really good job of turning you into a commodity. They've done a really good job of saying you're apples to apples. They've done a really good job of saying they're leveling the bids. I mean, guys, it's that's the game in the construction industry. And here's the deal. Not everybody listens to this podcast, which is good for you, bad for me, but good for you. In that, most people aren't doing the kind of stuff that we're talking about. Like, it's just that it is, very, very rare that you find the level of engagement that what that Matt and I are talking about tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of this gets so much easier to have these hard conversations, to ask for the proposal review meeting, to say no when you've got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah.
When you are going out and you are doing the business development and you are meeting people at networking events and you're going on LinkedIn and checking out clients that could be potential, future prospects, whatever it may be, you should always maintain the psychological mindset that we don't need this next job, because as soon as you feel that need, we need it, you're going to be desperate. It's going to be hard to ask the question. It's going to be hard to do anything but get involved in that low bid scenario. You can either fake that mindset, or, as I would recommend, and I have found much easier in my career, is to just go get the stinking meetings so that you can say no to 1 out of 5 or
That's
to
right.
2 out of 5. And you know what? You got another 3 in the funnel that are building up, that you've got accounts that you're selling, you got projects that you're selling.
Yep.
And you know what? If this one isn't the right one, then that's okay. Then I'm going to say, man, we spent $25,000 on this bid and I can't get a proposal review. And somebody says, you know what? If that's how you view it, then we don't want your bid. Okay, thank you so much. I understand. And we're going to go bid to people that feel good about the fact that we're putting that much of a resource into them and actually rewarding us for it.
Yeah. It's just because your competitors are willing to do it doesn't mean you need to be willing to do it as well. There's a really common mindset out there as well. Like, well, if I don't do it, then somebody else will. Okay, got it. Let them suffer working with those bozos.
Yep.
And do something different.
Yeah.
And if you can do that, now I got to bring it to a place that is really at the core of all of this, and the focus of many, many, many more conversations that we'll have over time, is that none of this matters unless you're actually better.
Totally.
So you're the thing to be most obsessed about if you're going to be successful at sales is don't be obsessed about sales. Be obsessed about being awesome. Be an incredibly well-oiled machine in the field. Make sure that your people are incredible at communication, at building, at hitting deadlines, at beating budget, at all those things. Focus on operational excellence. That is the focal point if you want to ultimately win without being low.
That so well said. So well said. And it gives you the ability to be genuine throughout all of the tactics and strategies that we just talked about for the last however many minutes. If you're being manipulative and deceptive, you will get found out. If you can
Totally.
be genuine and then go deliver it and do the dang thing, it is such a peaceful and calm experience for your client. And they are so surprised by it that, again, it's really easy for them to want to work with you again in the future.
There is no substitute for actually being freaking better.
Yeah, totally.
That's the deal. So if we are then better, the last thing, and now I'm going to go all the way back to account sales. If we are actually better, what you're doing, if you have the courage, and by the way, you absolutely should have the courage and conviction if you are in fact better and you're consistently delivering, you should have the ability to go back to the customer and consistently tighten your grip on the account. So if initially your expectations were you were going to be one of 5 bidders, after you crush it on a project and they absolutely love you and everybody in the field tells you that and you get them to write it down and you get to take it to everybody's boss, right? Do it. Absolutely do that. Collect those testimonials. You can go to them and say, hey, the last time we were one of 5 bidders. I'm glad we were able to get competitive. We're not normally able to be low in comparison to 5 different contractors. Obviously, you can kind of see the reasons why, because we're better in these different areas, which means we're probably spending more money on our people, on our processes, on our tools, on all the things that actually make us a better company. So just FYI on the next project, is it a reasonable expectation if we don't have to be low? Is it a reasonable expectation if we can just kind of come in and be in the ballpark? And maybe you communicate with us about where we need to be based on that feedback, and we'll do our very best to get there. And then, by the way, after you do this 3 or 4 or 5 more times, you can start to actually turn the conversation to like, doesn't it just make sense to kind of partner with us from the start, right? And just make us your go-to partner. And if you absolutely have to put it out to a competitive bid later, just to make sure that our numbers aren't insane, you can do that. But we're your contractor, right? And over time, you just tighten your grip on the account. That makes sales easy. Now, before you sit there and say, like, oh, this all sounds good. It's a really good theory, Prinkey, but it ain't going to happen. I'll tell you this. I guarantee you that almost everyone listening, at least 75% of the companies, of the people and companies that are watching right now or listening right now, have at least one account that's the way your relationship works today. They're not special. They can all be that account. But they are that account because you've done all these things, probably on accident.
Totally. It's so funny when you start asking about it. It's like, well, we do have this one.
Yeah, but they're weird.
That's because, right.
No, it's not them. We do this every day. We work with hundreds of different organizations, right? Like they're not weird. It is a norm. You just have to manufacture that norm. You have to make that happen. It's only a norm when, they like you better. They have a tighter relationship with you, and they think that they believe that you deliver a superior product. When those things are true, guys, the winning without having to be low and maybe even negotiating direct, that's not abnormal stuff. Not abnormal stuff.
No.
I mean, just before this show, I was talking to a general contractor who they're on, great client of ours, two-year client of ours, top notch company. And they've run 2 jobs now for an owner that the first time they ran a job, it was hard bid competitive. The second time they ran a job, it was competitive, but it wasn't hard bid. And they went through a process where they were, kind of given the project, but they had to get to a price, right? They had to navigate to a price that was, happening with other folks. Bottom line is they were given last look, right? And today they were just awarded a straight up negotiated non-competitive project in a state that they don't even operate in yet, because they said we don't need to go through any more exercises. Like, we want you to partner with us on the job.
Beautiful.
I mean, it happens.
Totally. Every single day.
This is a real story,
Yeah.
and so you can manufacture that stuff in your world. I think, Matt, that does it for our topic for today. We should argue.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Because we've been in way too much agreement. We've been in way. So I'll frame up the conversation briefly. This is one, and we'll probably take turns, bringing different things that we both feel strongly about from time to time to the conversation. Right. I'll acknowledge this is one that I brought to Matt, and I said, I want to argue with you on this. And he was like, okay, dude, if you want to argue, we can argue.
Stop yelling at me.
Right. So, the argument is whether, this is specifically for specialty contractors, whether you should, to what degree you should be subcontracting your labor versus controlling your labor, actually, having your labor be your employee force. And I wonder, the audience, I'm sure, has broad experiences with this. Some might have strong opinions, some no opinions at all. Matt has past experience on this and experience in general across the industry. And I wonder, as a starting point, Matt, what's been your experience with subcontracting labor?
So, yeah, no, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, this conversation of the merits between subcontracting versus having your own in-house labor, right?
Totally.
The people that are actually working for you, for your company, are part of your payroll. And in my experience, this can go both ways, but man, it can go well. It totally can be where you have an opportunity as a company, as a subcontractor. Your greatest risk in a bid is typically your labor.
Yeah.
Material quotes you should get right. You should get that security from your vendors. You've done your takeoffs, all of that. On your bulk prices, you should be getting that right. Your labor is an estimate.
Yeah.
That is a part of being in this industry. And so when you have the opportunity to take your labor estimate and turn it into a fixed cost through a subcontractor, you provide yourself an opportunity to reduce your risk. And if you're going to do this, you should be also making sure that you're increasing your profit margin on the project through the labor budget versus the subcontracted labor quote that you receive. And so there are benefits to doing it. And I've seen many successful endeavors where there are well-run labor subcontracting businesses that can own up on these projects and actually see them through to the end. So I have seen that. Now, I know you're passionate about the other side. I would be remiss not to say myself still that there is a total risk of using the subcontract labor because
Right.
they are not your people.
Yep.
They are never going to care about the jobs as much. They're never going to be the ones to stay. And maybe I shouldn't say never because there's probably some out there, but by and large, they're not going to be the ones that are staying, taking their phone flashlight out to work after the sun goes down when it's in the winter, making sure that they get done for the day. So there's a totally different experience that's going to occur for your team and for your clients when you've got subcontract labor versus in-house labor.
That was really well argued. I have to admit that it's difficult to be opposed to the appeal of gaining control over your labor costs. I think that is a very real draw, and being able to say, like, look, if there's an overrun, it's on them, and
Totally.
to some extent, fixing that cost. I'm not going to decimate that position because I do respect it. I understand where you're coming from. And there are a couple of different responses, though, that I have that are opposed to the position. I'm going to start by maybe just poking a little hole in one aspect of your argument in terms of controlling labor costs. And what I found is that while you tossed in there that there are some really, really well run labor subs, that's not the norm, right? Most of them are really, really small. Most of them don't have really any infrastructure. Most of them are run like basically off of a bunch of sticky notes on a dashboard. Okay. I've seen it. I know.
Not even a desk, a dashboard.
No, it's a dashboard. It's not a desk. We know it's not a desk, right? And so those contractors, the truth is that you can't really fully stick it to them if they have crazy labor overruns because they can't stomach it. And unless you're actually in the business of saying, eat it and putting people out of business who, you're actually counting on to do your next job, what I've actually seen way more often is that you don't let them eat it. You actually go and fix it for them, and you give them money and you help them to get through it, and you experience at least some percentage of the overrun as well. And I will acknowledge that it's not as bad as an internal overrun where you have to eat the whole thing, right? You're responsible for the whole thing. However, if you own your labor and you're having labor overruns, what are you doing, man? Right? Like it's I'm not saying that it can't happen. I'm just saying there's your opportunity for improvement because it's not normal. Just because it happens a lot doesn't mean it's normal. It shouldn't be. We shouldn't normalize the fact that we're having a bunch of labor overruns. We got to get better at estimating labor, and we got to get way freaking better at managing labor.
have so many thoughts. Yes, keep going.
Which means we also got to get better at finding labor and hiring labor in a world where there's a big labor shortage, and we can't get immigration straight to save our lives in this country and all that kind of shit, which is real and painful. And I hear you and I'm with you. I watch it all the time. I experience right alongside our clients. So, I'm not going to say it's easy, but I am saying that, you have, if you're running a good specialty construction company, you need to have project management in place. You need to have field supervision in place, and you need to have, just actual competent managers at every layer. And that's your priority. And if you do that, you're going to kill a subcontractor from a labor standpoint. I'm sorry, you are, unless that subcontractor is going to 1099 their undocumented workers. There, I said it. And now I'll bring in my second objection, which is on legal grounds. That is very, very dangerous turf to play in. You're getting away with it today. If you're getting away with it today, cool. But it's not a long-term plan. If you are actually using labor brokers who are clearly using undocumented workers who they are not 1099ing, who they're not W2ing, but they're 1099ing, the government's coming for their piece of tax money, man. And I don't care what jurisdiction you're in. If you're anywhere near a city, it's happening. Just watch. That'll start to materialize just like it has in Washington, D.C. and like it is in other other cities across the country out on the West Coast. It's coming. And as those things happen, if your business model is predicated on an illegal labor force, an undocumented labor force, if it's predicated on an undocumented labor force that is not, being paid correctly, you're just guaranteed to have a massive headache as you navigate that space. Final argument is on purely capitalist grounds. I am very uncomfortable with the idea that my fill in the blank, roofing business or masonry business or framing business, right, or whatever, that my framing company is wholly dependent on a workforce that I do not control, and that tomorrow can turn into my biggest competitor and own my labor because that was who I was counting on for my labor. They're only an estimator and a PM away from being you. And from a capitalist standpoint, it's insane to me that anyone who's trying to run a really, really well-run, sustainable, long-term, look, it's a great way to make a quick buck while the market survives. But this is not a sustainable plan, guys. The people who own the labor are going to control the industry. Probably do control the industry now, arguably. But the people who control labor are going to control the industry. And if you don't control your own, you're literally just rolling the dice on your future. My advice would be to use subcontractors in the same way you heard me describe at the beginning of this episode how we use ours. Use subcontractors, number one, when you don't have that particular expertise on staff because there's something really specific in your scope that you're hiring a sub who can really nail that you can't nail. That's a great place to hire a sub. And number two, as absolute overflow. You just don't have enough people on your existing staff to do the work that you currently have contracted. And so you need to lean on a labor subcontractor to fill in the blanks where you currently can't keep up with it. But don't get hooked on the easy button of being like, hey, this is awesome. I get to do the work and I don't even have to employ all the people. That is right. that is that's a mirage. It is going away. And I predict that in 10 years, in almost every jurisdiction across the country, it will be a very, very difficult thing to do legally. And most of these labor subcontractors will have converted into you.
Man, I love it. Um, you know, experience is so important. And it's funny that we're having this conversation in the same breath as we're having the conversation about winning without being low, right? The experience for a client when they're getting your team is so different from when they're getting another team. Because you know what happens almost every single day, and this is another experience question for your people, is your project manager is getting phone calls about people not showing up from the sub,
Right.
and then they're saying, I'm trying to get a hold of the sub to get them here.
Right.
They're stressed. They're
Yeah.
sad because they don't know what to do. They feel a degree separated from it because they are. And then your client is feeling sad and frustrated and talking about how your subs kept not showing
And
up.
by the way, GCs right now are like, can I get an amen? Because that's what they would argue. This is what they live through every day.
So there are totally, when you talk about it from a legal and moral ground, I mean, what argument am I going to make against you from a legal and moral ground against
Sure.
it? Like, and it's worth saying, and I'm glad you said that. There's no arguing any of those things. When you start getting into some of the other grounds, like client experience, like employee experience, like your opportunity to create a better industry, because you hate the fact of when GCs or clients beat down on you and then you're doing the same thing to a sub to try to get the most out of a job that you can. These are all the contextual elements that you have to be considering in here if you are going to make that decision. There is middle ground, obviously,
clearly. Yeah.
And there is opportunities where what I've seen work really well also. And again, I agree with everything you're saying. And just to put some of that middle ground in there, I've seen really awesome experiences where you have a crew from your team that are your top 3 foremen on a big job with a whole fleet of subcontractors that are the, individual laborers, mechanics, that are actually doing the work, while you've got foremen that are on site that have worked really well. And as long as the moral and the legal and all those,
as long as they're being
place,
W-2 paid, and I agree,
you can actually have a good experience that way for your people, for the client, all of those things that I'm talking about. And so, it really does come down to what you want to do. And there's one other thing that I just wanted to mention in all of this is, and again, in this context of sales and building these relationships, is the concept of, when you're trying to get low, do me a favor and please never take the money out of your labor rates. If you're going to get low and skinny, just tell yourself from day one that you're taking it out of profit margin.
Yeah.
And then go to your team and say, look, this is what we have for budget on labor and materials. We got to beat it up. We got to do better. We got to be faster. But do not take it out of your labor and then be frustrated and surprised, because all that does for you is you've got swing, the bonding company is upset, the bank's upset, everybody's upset because you didn't just report what was actually going to happen on the job.
It's so true, man. Isn't it kind of cute how humans we tell ourselves lies because it feels good in the moment. Like, I'm doing this very strategically.
I think we can build this a little bit faster than we've ever built it. Right. And I'm going to count on that on this one.
And it is, totally okay to convey to your team, look, we need to create efficiencies. Let's identify where we can do that. Let's take a look at this thing and take a scalpel to it and see how we can make that happen. But I completely agree with you. You got to have a level of just honesty with yourself and your team.
Totally.
So fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for arguing with me.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Yes, of course.
You should pick the next argument.
You said something earlier. I don't even remember exactly what you said. I think you said at the beginning of this, you're like, an argument which I will win. and the thought that I had was like, man, like that's where you and I differ. I was like, I'd be happy to win. It'd be nice to get a win. And there's some things that like I absolutely want to win. Don't get me wrong. But I'm like, I'm here for the vibes, for a good time, for a good conversation. I like the camaraderie, and you're ready to, go win, which again, I respect about you. I've found that in many of my mentors, and I consider you to be one of them, obviously, that they have that kind of attitude because I don't. And so I love it. And I'll come up with something. We'll have good debate. And you know what? The win for me will be the good debate and the camaraderie.
Yeah.
Sorry to spoil it for you.
Fine.
Oh, I thought you were going to cuss. I thought that
which would be okay.
Yeah, which is allowed.
It's allowed. It is allowed. What are you reading, Matt?
All right. I am reading, man. You had recommended to me when I first started working here, reading Emotional Intelligence by Daniel Goleman, and I read that fantastic book. Can't recommend it enough. And I feel like emotional intelligence was maybe like the college 101 or
Yeah.
201 level.
At the time, it was super groundbreaking, by the way.
And I don't even say that to make it basic at all. It's
Yeah, it's
not.
just
It's
it's
still
stuff that we've kind of accepted into our it was so powerful that it shaped the way that
totally,
we can communicate, at least, in our world, in the leadership, management, kind of sales world.
totally.
Anyway,
No, great points. And so to your point, emotional intelligence, the book is so predictive of where Goldman sees the world going from this emotional intelligence aspect. And he ended up being right about all of it, and it's amazing. Now I'm reading the book Optimal by Daniel Goleman, and there's a co-author on there as well. But it's, to me, it's the 301 or the 401. It builds on so many of the concepts that he came up with in emotional intelligence, and now he's got 30 years of data to build on top of it. And there's stuff about empathy, and there's stuff that just, man, whether you're in sales, whether you're in project management, whether you're just a man, whether you're a manager managing people, it's just so much good stuff to understand about how people tick, how you tick, and how it impacts the way that your business is run on a daily basis. So I'm just absolutely loving it, and like literally giggling to myself as I'm really reading it. Like, oh my gosh, I love all of this stuff.
biggest, like, what's the number one thing that when you think about that book right now, top of your head, that has been like the best, most exciting thing you've learned?
Oh, thank you for asking that. And it's easy. He talks about that there's three kinds of empathy. There's cognitive empathy, there's emotional empathy, and there's empathic concern. And so cognitive empathy is recognizing that talking with somebody else at a level that they understand feels really good and frictionless, right? So that's language. That's using the right words to connect with them. That's cognitive empathy. Emotional empathy is understanding how other people feel, understanding how what you do and how you interact with them makes them feel, right? And so if you're able to interact with them in a certain way that makes them feel good while being genuine, right, not doing things to manipulate them, but understanding how they react to things emotionally, how they might react to tone, how they might react to being excited, how they might react to strong hand gestures, all of these things go into emotional empathy. And the last piece, and this is really the key piece, is the empathic concern. And all empathic concern is caring. And what it means to me, and I just kind of beat myself to the punch a second ago, but what it really means to me is you can have cognitive empathy and emotional empathy and be a total jerk,
Yeah.
because I can totally manipulate you by understanding the words to use and the emotions to use to get you to do what I want you to do, right? The empathic concern is all about having a genuine care for that person. And when you bring in the empathic concern, now you've put yourself in a position where you're only going to appeal to that person's emotional empathy and cognitive empathy in a way that is actually about caring about them. And so that to me has been this framework that, as I'm talking to people and thinking about the importance of emotional intelligence, has been so impactful.
I'm really excited.
It's cool.
That's
It's
that.
good
That is,
stuff.
what I like. So, oh man, it's so funny because as you were talking, I actually wrote down the word manipulation, because I've had a long and kind of challenging experience of teaching people the concepts that we often teach them, and
Totally.
right, and squaring that with manipulate with being manipulative, and the term manipulation having a lot of baggage. Okay, so it just does.
Yes.
And I'll
Yes.
let the term have its baggage. I'm not going to fight the term over its baggage. The term has baggage that insinuates that it's nefarious, that insinuates that I'm manipulating you for my own purposes, and that is good for me, bad for you. It doesn't have to mean that, but it does in our lexicon. What I think is really cool about what you've described is that it actually has given what Goldman, I'm sure, has had sleepless nights over this topic.
Right.
I
Great
seriously,
point.
because he's
Yeah.
armed people with some serious potential weapons, and to be able to go back and say, but hold on, there is something that you must always have in mind. There's nothing wrong with wanting somebody to feel a certain way. That's why we're doing this. We want people to feel good, or good about themselves, or happy, or whatever else. But the motivations for that matter. and
Yes.
that's empathic
Concern.
concern.
Totally. You're exactly right. Yeah. So
Let's go.
I'm fired up about it.
Yeah,
It's
let's
good
go,
stuff.
Danny.
What are you reading, Chad?
I forget.
So
I'm reading
jazzed
that.
up.
I'm reading that now. I'm reading that. No, I'm reading a great book. It's called Unreasonable Hospitality. It's by a guy named Will Guidara or Guidara. It's a really cool book for me because it's very outside the box of what I would normally select, but it was recommended by my neighbor, and I read almost everything that's recommended to me because I almost just like the idea of being able to talk to that person and have better relationships with those people, with the people that I read books with. I don't know.
Cognitive empathy.
Cognitive empathy. There it is. So I can manipulate him and have him do my bidding.
Oh, wow. Now that I look out the window, Chad's neighbor's over here mowing the lawn. That's really weird.
He just wants to.
Yeah. He asked.
Yes, I don't know. Now you got me laughing really hard. Sorry. It's not true, by the way. He's weeding. So but the book is it's really about the idea that if you go out of your way to be unreasonably hospitable to employees and unreasonably hospitable to customers, that they will react in unreasonably loyal ways, and that they'll give above and beyond, and that that customers will give above and beyond and employees will give above and beyond if you give above and beyond. And so setting that standard, and it's a cool paradigm shift that has me thinking not just about ways that we can uphold a good customer experience, but ways that we can make customers go, no way, like, are you
Wow.
kidding me? And to make ways that you can do that same thing for employees, because that feeling, that emotion, and I'm sure we've all had that at some point where you've just been like blown away, like, this is silly, unbelievable, thank you so much kind of stuff. And the guy's from the restaurant industry. He's one of, like, he's number one restaurant in the world, award
Wow.
winner multiple times. And he tells stories about, like, finding out that there were, that this couple wanted to go out after dinner, but they had leftovers and they didn't want to carry the leftovers in the car because it was hot outside. And he was like, no problem, give us your address, we'll handle it. And they, like, brought their stuff to their house, put it in their refrigerator, had everything all done up for them,
Wow.
right? Like, that kind of just unreasonable.
Yeah.
Completely unreasonable hospitality.
And
So
that's what it's called, right? Unreasonable.
yep, that's it. It's really cool. It's a simple read. It's a fun read.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah. So it's my biggest takeaway from the book. Number one, like, cool idea coming away from it that really jumped out at me was that, construction is not just a manufacturing industry. We're not just manufacturing buildings. It is a service industry. It's a service and manufacturing industry, which makes that unique. You don't just get to build your thing in your warehouse facility and then bring it and drop it off at the customer, like so many other companies that really only have to focus on manufacturing and having a nice customer service arm to deal with the customers.
Totally.
We're delivering a service every day in the construction industry. You're out there doing the work, you're manufacturing, and you're servicing at the same time. Like, it's a hard freaking industry.
Basically in your client's house.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Whether you're a sub working for a GC, and that GC, that's their job site, or whether it's in the residential sector and you're literally in their house.
Right.
Anyway, that was my big takeaway.
Really
was that,
cool.
if we thought about it a little bit more like restaurateurs think about their customer experience, and we thought about how to be unreasonable, to not just to actually create the, stop it
Yeah.
kind
Cool
of
stuff.
situations. And one of the other things that comes from that that also jumped out at me is most of the stuff that he talks about, very, very affordable. Like, it's free to cheap.
Wow.
It's not like you have to give away profit to make people say, wow.
Wow. Totally.
I just did it.
Yeah.
It didn't cost me anything. It didn't cost me anything. Matt, this has been a lot of fun.
So much fun, as always.
As always, indeed. I will look forward very much to the next time we do this.
and we'll let you know what time the sun sets that day.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be right up on what the degree, the angle is, all that kind of stuff. Thank you for joining the Morning Huddle Construction Show, everybody. Thanks for checking out the Well Built series in particular. Make sure you check us out at themorninghuddleconstructionshow.com. Make sure you're subscribed to that. Check that out. Go to our company's website if you're intrigued at what Matt and I actually do. That's wellbuiltconsulting.com. We have a lot of fun. Here's the deal. We only work with awesome companies that are loaded with phenomenal people. So you have to think pretty highly of yourself to contact us. I'm joking, obviously. Contact us. We will, but we really only do work with amazing people. You'll find that. I just feel so lucky.
It is so much fun, and it is so good. So go do some good for the industry this week. Go do whatever you got to do, and thank you all for listening.
Thanks, guys.